Hello, everybody out there. Once again, I'm back with Kirstens Live for the German Tarot Association, and I'm here with Steve Hounsome. Hello, dear Steve.
Hi, Kirsten. Lovely to see you again.
I'm very pleased to have you here. And it was really great. Yeah, I read your last newsletter. I wrote back to you, and you immediately answered, which is not very often the case with people. And were positive about a life with me. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. I really enjoyed the last time. We were saying, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I can't remember.
I think it was actually, it must have been, I think 3 years ago, but I'm not very sure. I actually linked our last talk in the show notes if you want to look it up, everybody who's watching now. And I also put your web page on in the show notes so everybody can get informed about you. Who doesn't know Steve, you are a druid. This is what I always keep in my mind, which because I talked to Philip Cargom, I wanted to talk to him about tarot at the time during Corona, and he said, I can't do this. Please talk to Steve. And I was very pleased that I got you as a sparring partner. It was a lot of fun.
And I did a couple of courses together based around tarot, the transformation through tarot, and then a tarot chakra journey. So they're on Philip's website has them, the Art of Living Well. I think if you Google the Art of Living Well, you'll come up with that website.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are we planning today? I called the session the Soul of the Tarot. And we wanted to chat about a few things which I was thinking about when I was reading your last newsletter. Who hasn't subscribed to it, please subscribe.
It's free.
It's free. It's free. And we also will do a little meditation you want to show us later on. So keep tuned. And when I read your newsletter, I think you called it the Spirit of Tarot, but for me it sounded much more like the soul.
Well, soul, yeah.
And you were kind of discussing how you came to tarot and the way you learned readings and compared it to what you experience when you watch people do it now. So what would you say is the difference to the way you got into the cards and what is happening nowadays?
Well, I mean, I think it's totally different now to when it was when I started. I mean, that's the evolution of time and things change, obviously. But at that point, when I was in my teens, and I'm in my 60th year now, so it's a long time ago. But tarot then it was still quite a sort of secret thing, really. It wasn't available in the way that it is now. Obviously, we're way before the internet, but in shops, they were kept under the counter and you had to ask. I worked in a bookshop on Saturdays while I was still at school, and we had a folder of cards, and the actual decks themselves were always sealed, never opened, and people would look at samples in the folder.
I remember that.
Yeah, and they were viewed as something quite suspicious, really. It was a bit dodgy. Whereas now it's sort of open and everywhere, and there are thousands and thousands of decks. Back then there weren't that many.
With which were you starting?
Sorry, say that again, Kirsten.
Which one did you choose for starters?
I started with the deck, the Morgan Greer deck.
Oh, yeah.
Which I've still got. It's in my this cupboard here is full of literally full of tarot decks. So much that I can hardly get any more in, but I'm sure I will. and it's in there somewhere. I still have it, and it's you know how a deck of cards. You know, this is the deck I'm currently working with, so it's that thick. My Morgan Greer is about that thick because it's so dog-eared and it's beautiful, and I love it. So yeah, the Morgan Greer deck was my very first one, and then I've progressed to different ones over the years. So I think now one of the main differences is that openness and the availability of tarot. And one of the things that concerns me is that its nature and what it is, how it's used and what it represents can get cheapened in the commercialism of it all.
What do you mean by commercialism?
Well, I think where it's so popular now. There's been fashion shows in Paris, and people are wearing tarot-based, dresses and God knows what. And like I said, there are thousands and thousands of decks, and everyone can put their spin on it. And just about anybody can read the tarot, and charge money for it, and the quality varies. I'm not here to criticize anyone. We all have our role and play our place and do our thing. But for me, what we're doing when we're working with the tarot, whether we're doing divination, I'll use that term deliberately, or we're just working with it ourselves as a sort of meditation or developmental aid or whatever, what for me we're doing is that we're working with something that's sacred. And so for me, the deck is a representation of energy and what's going on at that particular time, rather than, the Four of Pentacles means that you're stuck or you're bored or whatever the traditional meanings are. I don't really work with them anymore. It's more about what we see in that card and what we're sensing and what we're feeling, and even physical responses. Sometimes people will have literal physical responses when they look at cards. And in the hands of a good tarot therapist, as I like to call them, then with the right interaction and carefully phrased questions, we can work alongside with that client to strengthen and empower them. And that's what, for me, that's a sacred process. We're dealing with life. It's a sacred thing.
Yeah. So I have two thoughts about this. One is this consumerism aspect. I mean, when I started out with tarot, probably around the same time you did, and when I joined the Tarot Association, I really wanted people to know more about tarot. We wanted to bring it into society, basically. And now that this has happened, it's not come out as I thought it would. But isn't it also a good thing that people know this now a bit more than they used to?
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's almost two different levels. I think that I sort of see tarot being used now. There's that, everyday use. A lot of people will take a card a day, which is something I've never done. But for me, that's a surface level, and I say that with respect. I don't mean that in a cheapening way, but if you're taking a card every single day for whatever it is, whatever purpose it is, then you can only go so far with it. But for me, if we have a reading, whether it's with a tarot professional or we work with it for ourselves, then we can do that more deeply and slowly. I have a thing that I call tarot mentoring, where I will take a card at some point out of the whole deck, and I may ask for something specific, but usually I would just ask to be shown the right card that I need in my energy right now. And I'll shuffle the pack, fan it out like I do. I just sort of sweep the cards across. I'm moving my hand like that in an arc across the table. And I will select a card from there, face down. And then I'll sit with it and I'll jot down some notes, my initial response. The initial responses we have can tell us so much. What's the first thing that comes into your head or your heart? Both. And then I may well, if it's a deck from I use different decks. If it's a deck from a particular theme, I might have a look in the book. after I've given my responses. That's always most important. And I'll make some random notes or whatever. At some point, I might meditate and journey into the card. And I have a little perspex holder I've got. This is my card at the moment. Let me turn it that way. I don't know. It's a bit shiny on the camera, isn't it?
Wildwood Tarot? No, not Wildwood. The Wild Unknown Tarot.
That's the Wild Unknown Tarot. It's the 4 of Wands. That's the card I'm working with, and that sits there on my desk until such point that I feel something shifting in me, or something happens, or whatever, and it's time for the next card. So the tarot is an ongoing mentor for me. Yeah.
So why is the Hermit behind you?
Well, he's always with me. He's literally with me. He's tattooed up here as well. That image was what actually attracted me to tarot. That was the very, very first thing. I think I saw it first. If for those of you of watching that are of sufficient age, the vinyl album of Led Zeppelin's 4th album, which is the one with Stairway to Heaven on it. It had a gatefold sleeve, so it opened up, and there was a big picture of the Hermit on it.
Really? I didn't know this.
Oh, yeah. You can
I didn't listen to Led Zeppelin. I'm afraid.
Oh, right. Okay. So it was on there, and there was something about that image, and I found out that it came from the tarot. And at some point, when I was 14, I ventured into this, shop in deepest Brighton, and brought my Morgan Greer deck. So it was just something about that image. I've always loved it. That's from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So he's up there, and he's tattooed up here, and he's with me all the time. It's kind of, I don't know, I just identify with it. It expresses the essence of who I am, I think.
Sorry, I just had to get rid of somebody who always pesters here. So you really kind of got a calling. I like the idea of the Hermit and the Stairway to Heaven, because he's kind of at the entrance of the cards, which then lead you into the soul of tarot, if I'm coming up with this title again of today, I think.
Yes.
Isn't it?
I think it's the gateway into within, really. I remember reading in a book a long time ago, can't remember which book, but how all the cards in the major arcana after the Hermit, so the Wheel of Fortune onwards to the World, take place within the Emperor's mindset. So our little destroying person seems to be back. How silly.
Yeah, never mind. It's okay. It's just I know this person. They have come up frequently.
Right. So the Hermit is just something about the image. I just love it, and that whole ethos, I suppose, of the Hermit.
Well, he looks a bit druidry, I think.
Well, I guess, yeah. It's odd though, because the thing of finding out your card from your birth date, just add up the digits. So 30th of September 1964 for me, that adds up to 32, so it's 5. So I'm a Hierophant, which expresses a lot of what I do. The Hierophant's the holy teacher, and I'm teaching tarot. It's kind of what I do. But I always had a bit of an issue with the Hierophant. I never kind of liked the image until I saw the Light Seers tarot deck?
Yes.
The Hierophant in that, which has got this sort of smiley guy in a t-shirt and jeans sitting at the bottom of a stairway to heaven.
Oh, stairway again, yeah.
It shifted, the whole thing shifted as soon as I thought, I like him. He's good now. I can be this guy. So it shifted, yeah.
So the second thing I was thinking when you talked about consumerism, so how did you understand that tarot is kind of has a soul, a spirit, is kind of a living being?
I think it's just what happened over a period of time, because for me, when I started, and I had a couple of books and then a few more books, and now I've got a whole bookcase full. I was making notes, but I found that what meant more to me was when I put my own responses to the cards. And there's a cupboard above my head up here in which there's a file of all those notes that I made many years ago. And I kept doing that, and then I started meditating on the cards. Where I would literally journey into the card in a sort of shamanic kind of a way, I suppose. And I would either become the character in the card, or it would speak to me, or something would happen. I'd felt a shift, and I kind of evolved over time doing this. This took a few years, I sort of evolved and came out with this sense, I suppose, or a feeling or an idea that the cards are alive of themselves. They're living beings, like you said. So they're like energy to me. Each card is a representation of energy. It's a sort of little energy capsule frozen in time. And when we select those cards in a reading, or one in the way that I said, as the tarot mentoring style, it's a reflection of our own energy at that point. So it's what it represents to us that matters, rather than what it means. What I often say to my tarot students on my courses is that they don't mean anything. What is this representing to you? What is it saying to you right now? You then might choose that card 2 or 3 months down the line, and it can represent something quite different. So it's a lot itself.
You also wrote in the newsletter that you believe that everybody will come up with different meanings for cards, exactly. Which means you don't believe in the traditional meanings?
Well, I don't not believe in them. I think the view that I take is that because a lot of decks obviously have similar use of symbolism in different ways. So there's, I think, a core essence, if you like, to each card. But I think that the idea of, when we're approaching a card, the thing we need to have in our minds is, what does it mean? If we step aside from that, it's not about what it means, it's about what you get from it. What are you experiencing as you look at this image? Mm-hmm. What's happening in that card? What goes on? These are the kind of questions I may ask my client, and they may make a comment. And I'll say, okay, so let me just give you an example. If I should have set my other webcam up, but we've got this card from Poppy Paling's.
Sorry, I don't know this card. It's lovely. Poppy Paling's?
Poppy Paling, Palin.
Okay.
Who sadly died a year or two back.
Okay.
But she was an absolutely brilliant artist. She was the one that did my Hermit Tarot tattoo, actually.
Okay.
She was a tattooist as well as an artist. I added the swords onto this. And so somebody might look at this and make a comment and say, "Oh, I don't like those swords. They look a bit threatening." So my response might be, "Okay, so what are they threatening? What's threatening about them to you?" And so we will lead that conversation into an experience. And so I might suggest, well, okay, they're on a book here. So what might be written on that book? What would you imagine is in there? What might that say to you or suggest to you? So it's this open-ended process. So rather than going into, oh, well, the Five of Swords could be about gossip or whatever. I don't really remember the traditional meanings because I've sort of left them behind. But I think that's one of the things it talks about, but learning and knowledge. Okay, but what are you learning? What knowledge do you have right now? What might that be telling you or trying to communicate to you, or what knowledge may you not have you need to acquire from a book?
So apart from the fact that there's so many decks out now, would you say if everybody is kind of developing their own understanding of tarot, I don't know how to phrase this question. Is there still the original spirit in the cards at all, or is it
I think so.
getting lost?
I think so, because for me, the tarot is a sort of like a repository of human knowledge and experience. I think because tarot, the way I view a human being is that we're all living, breathing tarot decks. The structure of a tarot deck is the structure of a human being. The 4 suits in the minor arcana being the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual levels. And then when you combine those 4, you get the 5th, which is the major arcana, and that's the soul or the spirit, whichever term. So that arcane knowledge, I think was there from the time the first decks were created, and obviously it's evolved. over the last 500 years or what have you. And I think that tarot's at this point of evolving into something new with the different technologies available, and that's why I think it's so important right now that we retain that sacred nature, so it doesn't get cheapened in its explosion, of popularity, which is fantastic. The world loves tarot. That's grand. I'm happy. But what I don't want is that it gets cheapened in that process. That we retain its sacred nature, because that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the stuff of life.
So how can we do this?
Well, I think it's about educating people, and that's why I, put out the articles that you've read and so on, and I teach in that way. And in my books, I sort of preach on about that as well. But I think it can come down to simple things, even like the practicalities. My decks, I never leave them out. I've got my tarot deck here, but when we're finished, it will go back into its little beautiful pouch that my wife made for it, with my little logo printed on it, and my wife sewed it all up for me. And then it will go into my wooden box, which is just sat next to me here, and then it goes in a cupboard. So I keep them as a sacred object, and when they come out, I have a tarot cloth that I've had for I don't know how many years, which again my wife repairs and sews it up every now and again, because she's better at me than that stuff. And that's what my cards are laid out on, every time I work with them. So it's having that sacred regard, and rather than just when I'm doing a reading or working with the cards for myself, so I think I'll do some tarot, and I just pick them up. I prepare. At the very least, what I will do is close my eyes and take a few deep breaths and get into some sort of altered state of consciousness or what have you. Before I then approach the card, I will ask to be guided and led and so on. But you can do that as in whatever simple or elaborate or ritualistic way that works for you. So it's having that sacred regard for them. I think that's what we need to keep.
So when you get a new deck, how do you start developing its spirit or getting into its spirit?
It will depend if I'm, if I'm going to use it as a working deck. Mm-hmm. The decks that I work with for professionally, then I do lots of work with them beforehand. But what I would do is just simply sit and shuffle with them for a long time. Not all in one go, but over weeks or what have you, so that I get my energy into them. I get to know them that way, and I'll just spend time looking at the cards, noticing my responses, just idle moments, or so I'll pick them up and just have a leaf through a few cards, just really getting to know them, so I'm very, very familiar with the particular images that are on them, and maybe making notes as well. So it's kind of like getting to know a new friend, really, I suppose. It's a new person to get to know. It's a lovely process.
Yeah, I used to take them into my bed when I was quite young.
Did you? Well, that's something else that I suggest. I use various things that I suggest to people that I read for. I give them homework, as I call it. And sometimes I suggest that people actually place a card under their pillow and ask for dreams for it and see what happens in the morning, what they get. So, yeah, that can work.
I always have the 78 cards, and it's getting very muddled.
Yeah, right.
They all start talking.
Yes, well, this is it. Yeah, so I work with one at night. Otherwise, you get mad manic dreams. Yeah.
But I can totally relate to this, and I find it very interesting. So if anybody has questions for Steve, you can just ask him. But if you're just listening to our conversation, that's fine as well. You mentioned books, right? Just there. How many books have you written?
Oh, I think it's 10 now. I'm looking up where they are on my bookshelf and counting. Bear with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yes, 10.
I see you're not a very consumeristic author. Otherwise, you would be knowing
know.
this by heart.
Well, I mean, when I started, the first 4 books, only one of which was on tarot, I had a publisher for. But then along came the internet, and with it, Amazon, and then they started their book publishing thing, and I found that to be far more effective. You got instant worldwide market,
Yeah.
and over the years, it's got better.
Yeah.
You need a bit of patience to get a book going, but once you've sussed the system out, it's doable. And I do that now, so I find that works better. So are all the books about tarot? All of my books? No, most of them are. There was a book about full moon medication. For those that know me. There's a book about full moon meditation called Taming the Wolf. There's a book called Practical Meditation and one called Practical Spirituality. I did one called How to Be a Telephone Psychic when I managed a telephone psychic line in the 90s.
Telephone psychic.
It's quite funny, and I promise you everything in it is absolutely true. And the remaining 6 are about tarot. Yeah.
I like this title. I have to get this.
There's some stuff in there that will just you make your toes curl up, but it's true. I promise you, it is true.
I like it a lot. Yeah, but you also told me just your last book, which came out last year, is a very special title, Tarot and Grief, as far as I remember.
Tarot for Grief, yes.
For grief.
When we were chatting before we started, and
yes,
when the intro music played, I grabbed a copy so I could show people Tarot for Grief.
It looks very bleak, the card on it. Is it the star?
Well, it's the stars, yeah. So although it's quite dark, there's hope in there. And that's precisely why I put that card. The card is from one of the 2 decks that I designed. It's called the Firmament, but it's 17 in the Major Arcana, which is the star normally. But it documented, there is my own personal journey of grief after my daughter died just over 2 years ago. Very suddenly. She was only 32, so it's a very sudden and unexpected death. And I did what tarot readers do in my grief. I turned to the tarot to just for some, not really for answers, but to know what the hell was going on, really. What, in me, how do I do this? What do I do? How do I cope, kind of thing. And I did the tarot mentoring process, really, and I still am. That's continued since then. And I came to realize that actually you can work with the tarot to work with grief. And for anyone that knows the general psychological approach to grief will know that there are 5 generally recognized stages. Some people say there's more, but I worked with the more accepted 5. And I found that they fell into place perfectly with the tarot in the 4 suits, and the Major Arcana each represented the 5 stages. The sort of last one, not that you do them in order because it's not a logical linear process, but the last one, as it's generally viewed at, is acceptance, and that was the remit of the major cards for me. And each time a major card popped up, I found something had shifted, and I moved on to something else. And that carries on. You don't get over grief; you learn to accept and live with. And then it becomes okay. But I found also trying to find an answer was a total waste of time and energy, because there aren't answers. There's acceptance and peace and love, and that's what that's my answer. The fact that there isn't one.
So you think
the book is a guide for that, basically.
Do you think every Major Arcana is a card for grieving, or are there special cards?
No, all of them. Every card in the deck you can view in the light of grief. That's what the book has got within it. It's got my views and ideas and suggestions for every card. It's seen and responded to in the light of grief. So let's take an obvious example, the 9 of Swords, which has usually got that person sat up in the bed at night with their head in their hands thinking, oh, woe is me. And, you know, when you're going through the intensity of grief, that's pretty common. That happens quite a lot, you know, and you need to allow that to happen. But the card can help you question that and think, well, what else is going on? And, you know, I found it's an intensely deep and personal process. But if you're brave enough to go through it, I strongly urge you to use the tarot in that way. It's the most remarkable healer, inverted commas. I think that's why I love tarot so much. It's got everything I need in it.
So you really see it as a communication partner.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's a mentor for me. That's the thing, and I like that term, because it's not about teaching in terms of it telling me what to do or what to believe or what to think, but it's there as a mentor. It asks me the right questions, you know, and it never fails to have something to say. I might not like the answers, you know, or like what it's saying, but it's always true. That's one thing I've always found with tarot, is that it will always tell you the truth. It never lies, ever.
Yeah, if you can, if you're brave enough to see the truth in the cards.
Well, yes, this is it. Yeah, and that's why I think we have to work with our clients when we're in a reading or a session with them, whatever, that, you know, we can lead them to a place that strengthens and empowers them, and hopefully they go away able to better face that truth.
Yeah. So, do you have an answer for XK23?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, and thank you for asking that. Why do you think the Swords cards are more negative than the other minor arcana? Well, the answer is I don't, because I don't think they are. They're shown as that, and I totally and utterly get why you're asking that. But for me, they're not. I think perhaps a good answer or something useful to say might be that they're reflective. For me, the swords are about our minds and our mental process, the element of air, and what's going on in our heads, and that is often where we trip up. You know, our heads tell us things that are often incorrect, you know, and we replay traumatic things over and over and over in our minds, trying to process it and shift the energy. And I think a lot of the imagery traditionally in swords cards reflect that process. As we're trying to learn to process things in our experiences, for me, it's a dissension process, or a process of descent, where, excuse me, that energy will come down from above, the divine, whatever, spirit, soul, the major arcana, then down into our individual spirits, so the realm of the wands cards, the fire, then into our minds. And it's often there, or if we're able to understand something, it descends into our heart, and it can be the head or the heart where we get blockages. And I think a lot of the traditional symbolism in swords cards reflect those blockages, reflect the mental negatives that we often struggle with. So in the deck that I use most of the time now, what I did was I searched through loads and loads of the decks that I own, to try and find, particularly with the swords cards, that didn't show that negativity, that shows a different light. But in saying that, what I think it's important to recognize as well is that I don't shy away from those negatives. They're still there in the cards. I'm just trying to find a good swords card while I'm talking to give you an example. It's important that the cards, all of them, are not seen as good or bad or positive or negative, because they just are, like energy. They just are, you know. And so if people are saying, oh, this is a good card or this is a bad card, you know, my first instinct would be, well, why? For me, there's, you know, so that's why I don't use reversed cards. So you get the negative if it's reversed. It's all there in that energy, and it's about our response. So this is the Four of Swords that way. the Four of Swords card that I use.
Is this a deck you created, or?
No, I mean the deck that I use, what I did was pick out from lots of the decks that I use my favourite cards from the decks until I had
Really?
scanned them in, and I put in the title Swords 4 at the top is my own. I put that on, and I might have played a bit with a few symbolisms, not in this card, but some of them. And then I had it printed. I got my symbol that I love on the back.
Ah, I see. Because I thought they can't be all the same size. So
Yeah, no, they were. It took a lot of computing trickery and all of that, and
yeah,
lots of patience for me because I'm not that good at it. But for me, Swords 4 is more a card about meditation, than the traditional one of the guy lying on the tomb. It's a bit of a different feeling.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
Mm.
Wow, that is quite a labor of love you did there.
Well, it was literally that, Kirsten. It really was. I loved doing it, and the end product for me, I really love as well, because it's more of a personal deck.
Yeah, so that's another thing, personalizing one's deck. How can we do this?
Well, I think that can be if you're not going to put in the hours and hours to do what I did. I think that can be where it comes down to the way we regard our tarot. So that's where I think we come back to that thing of having that sort of sacred regard for it, where it's so important that we treat it as we would a best friend. That's probably a good way of putting it. We look after it. We don't leave it open for anyone and everyone, or the dog to chew, or whatever it might be. We don't, leave it around where there's food to get spilt on it, or coffee over it, or whatever. But they're kept, and we have that regard of a sacred object. Lots of people will have an altar or something representing that in their home, and that can be a very good place to keep them. Mine are covered.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. I mean, I have around, I don't know, 400 decks or so because I'm reviewing them. So people send me decks, and
yes, of course,
that's why I have them. But many of them I won't use because they are not my decks. But I think it's fair to put them in the cupboard, isn't it? I don't have to.
I mean, I think it can be good. Some people, will always suggest they should be cleansed every time. I'm always, if I've worked with them in a reading, I'm always the last person that touch them. I always give them a shuffle afterwards. Some people might like to put them all in order, have all the suits in order and the majors in order. But whatever. Occasionally, I might fan them through some sage incense or smoke, sage stick, whatever, or incense, or place a crystal on them, or leave them on the windowsill overnight over a full moon period, which is a 5-day period in total. That'll help cleanse them. But something, again, keeps them clean of energy, same as we do need to do for ourselves.
I think I'm too much of a messed up Piscean for this.
It comes down to what works for you, but I think what matters is our regard for it, and clearly you've got that. No problem.
No, I remember doing this when I started out with tarot readings. I was, after every session, I was kind of holding them over sage or whatever. I just, at one point, I just said, it's paper. Shouldn't say this to you, but then I was like, is this really, do you think the energy of people gets stuck in the deck?
I think not really quite like that, but I think it's about that regard, because I mean, after all it is a piece of sort of laminated card, really. So this in itself isn't necessarily a sacred thing, but they can, over a period of time, they build that sort of object up, that kind of sense up, so they can attract energy to it. Say lots of people I know, and we've had this experience as well, of cats, when you work with tarot, they will make a beeline for your cards and they will sit on them. And I'm sure that's something to do with the energy of it. They are just drawn like magnets. We've had in my tarot groups here in the past, we've had a cat choosing cards, pushing one out for some
Really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I like this.
So I think they absorb energy, so it's good to do that. But it's not so much the cards themselves, but what they represent. That's what matters, and so it's a reflection of our regard for that.
Yeah, I totally relate to this. I mean, I always have the feeling they're poking fun out of me, or just making me feel silly when I ask the same question too often or whatever. It's you really have the feeling they kind of go, "Shut up, do something else."
Yeah, and they just repeat the same thing in a different way.
Exactly.
When we
Can't
do that,
bother it anymore.
it's already, I'm just going to say it again.
So, do you still have your first deck?
I do, absolutely. Yeah, it's somewhere buried in there, so I can't lay my hands on it now.
Don't open it now.
People, yeah, but it's I know pretty much in the cupboard where it is. But as I say, there's over 300 decks in there, so it's going to take me a while to find. But yes, I wouldn't be without that.
So there are no more questions. I hope everybody is enjoying the talk. And you wanted to give us a meditation.
Yeah, I thought
what is this meditation good for?
Well, the idea is to just introduce you to the idea of, where you've referred to the soul of the tarot, or I might say the spirit of the tarot, whatever. But we can see it as if you like, the inner essence, the core, the energy, if you like, the deity, whatever you view it as, but the energy that fuels the cards, the tarot as a whole, and its evolution. For me, when I work with that, I connect with that spirit. So it's a little journey to give people their own introduction to the experience of that. So it'll only be a few minutes. I know there are a few names that I'm recognizing who will be familiar with this, so they can just journey there. But let's do a little journey for that.
Yes, just XK23 is asking whether you can give us a card. I don't know what you mean by that, XK23.
Yeah.
Let's perhaps stick to the meditation for the time being.
Yeah, we can come back afterwards to do that. So let me invite you then just to close your eyes. And just take a nice deep breath myself. And if you would like to do the same, just taking 2 or 3 deeper and slower breaths, just to relax you and let go of your day, let go of the outside world. And let's just take 3 breaths together, and a breath releasing on the out breath down into the earth, connecting with the earth beneath us, and feeling that earth energy rising into us on the in breath, fueling us and strengthening us. And then the next breath, we can have the energy flowing down to us from above, from the stars, if it's nighttime where you are, or the moon, or perhaps the sun, whatever, or just the universe. Breathing out on that energy, descending down into you and meeting in your center, your own sacred center, wherever you might sense that to be. And that then radiates that energy and light out from your center, filling your whole being, your body, cleansing it, strengthening it, expanding out and filling the aura. And so we're within our own sacred space. And from that sacred space, we can go on a little journey just in our mind or our imagination, just imagining ourselves walking through a wood or a forest. And just connecting with that. It might be any kind of forest. Perhaps it's a pine wood forest, beautiful, tall, straight pine trees, or perhaps it's even a rainforest. It could be natural place like that. And there's a path, though, there for you to follow, twisting and turning. Perhaps you're bending low under overhanging branches, or climbing over fallen logs. And as you follow that path ahead, you'll come to a clearing in the middle of that wood or that forest, wherever you are. And in the center of that clearing, there's a building of some sort. It might be a very tall, ornate building, might be a big castle, stately home, might even be a simple garden shed, but any kind of building. And so you're walking over to that building, looking for the entrance, looking for the door or whatever means to get inside. And there's a shift in the energy and the presence as you move inside that building. Something tells you you've entered a sacred place here, a place of a different reality and dimensions, so that what was there on the outside may not be like that on the inside. And as you enter, you'll see a set of stairs before you leading upwards. And so you climb these, finding you can climb them quite easily and swiftly, without effort, climbing all 22 stairs, if you count them. And at the top you emerge into a hallway, a large hall. And when you look around at the hall, you'll see all around it the major arcana cards of the tarot. Perhaps you take a little walk around, looking at each card in turn, but it's as if they're alive. Perhaps the characters even turn to watch you, but you don't feel threatened. You know you're in a safe place here. For now, you don't interact with any cards, but instead you find your way to a small table or altar at the center of this hall, on which a small flame of a candle burns. As you approach this, you stand before that flame and you pause, you close your inner eyes, and you feel again a deepening of the energy and the presence in this place. And you know that there is something of the soul or the spirit of the tarot in this place. And you just pause for a moment, not trying to experience anything or see anything or hear anything, but you just simply pause and let whatever occurs happen as you experience the spirit of the tarot. And then perhaps a little sooner than you might have wanted, it's time for your visit here to come to an end. You open those inner eyes, seeing that candle flame still burning steadily, just giving you enough light to see where you go. And taking your experience with you, you find your way back to the staircase, knowing that you can return here when you wish. You descend the stairs, moving easily and freely back down to the entrance to this temple of the tarot. Stepping through, you emerge back into the clearing in the wood or the forest, moving across that and finding your way back to that path that winds its way through, taking you back to your physical self, your physical body, and where you are sitting, being aware of your computer or your device in front of you, and the breath in your body which you deepen, just breathing, connecting with the physical body, moving your toes and fingers a little, pressing your feet to the floor, just establishing that physical contact again. Bringing the breath back, and when you are ready, opening your eyes and returning. Okay. So that was very quick, because obviously I'm aware of time and so on, but it's a much shorter version of it than I normally do, but hopefully some people had something.
Yeah, I mean, I never did it in front of a computer while people watching me, I have to say.
No, it's a
weird experience.
I have my eyes shut all the way through, so I don't know what's going on.
So I will do a pic of me later on and freeze frame myself. Kirstens live chat. No, but it was very, very nice. I really liked this room with the 22 arcana. I found it hard not to interact.
I know. Well, I said that deliberately. If people are interested, you can download that meditation. It's only, I think, £3 on my website, tarotherapy.co.uk. If you just go to there's a downloads page in the shop, and it's the Spirit of the Tarot. There's a tarot temple, and then the spirit, and then later on, I take people into a card. You can do that. But for the first one, it's better to get used to it, because before you go into the deeper side of it with cards, but you can get some powerful experiences with that.
Yeah, I could really feel this flame. I got thrown a bit by closing my inner eyes. I haven't done this before. So
okay. It's with a view to getting into a deeper level, so that there's a shift when the Spirit of the Tarot comes in, or you connect with it, or it connects with you, so that again it's reflective of that sacred nature of the cards. And people experience the Spirit of the Tarot in all sorts of different ways. Some people see it as a card, whether it's the Empress or the Hermit or whatever. I never have. I've never seen it in a physical way. It's always like shimmering colors and energy to me.
For me, it was a bit like in I don't know whether you know the musical Dance of the Vampires.
All right. Yes.
And there's one scene where there are all the pictures of these ancient people, and they all keep looking at you.
When I saw the Harry Potter film, and the pictures talk and move and all of that. Well, that's kind of what I've been working with the cards like that in this temple. So
I like that.
It's a technique I've used for years. So it's good for going deeper within.
No, but it's really, I think it's a powerful tool. And if you all want to try the meditation, I linked Steve's site in the show notes, and you can download the meditation. I think you already put you also put the link into the newsletter for the meditation. Perhaps I can just put it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, but if you're having trouble, just drop me a line at my email or on Facebook, whatever. And if you have interesting experiences with the Spirit of the Tarot, tell me. I'm interested to know.
Yeah, I think people are now tired. They're all going to sleep.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think we had quite a lot of topics today. People seem to have enjoyed it. I'm glad about this.
Good,
and I hope to have you back at one point.
I'd love to, yeah.
And we talk about some other interesting stuff. Alan says, wonderful.
Yes.
private magicians club.
Yes, that's the thing within the Druid group that I and Alan are in as well. So enjoy, Alan. Yes, I'll be catching that up tomorrow. And lovely Richard there as well. Yeah.
Yes, I can agree with Richard. It's very nice talking to you, Steve.
Thank you very
And
much.
you have a really good voice for meditation, I have to say. It's very resounding. I like it.
Good. Thank you. Good. Yes, it's I've guided so many meditations over so many years. I've never ever tired of it. It never feels sort of automatic because I get it as well. That's the beauty of it. I can only guide it when I'm doing it. So it's always a nice experience for me.
It's because you have the hermit in the back.
This is it. He's always there feeding me. Yes.
Okay, everybody. So go to the Magicians Club, do whatever you want. I'm back with the live chat next week, but I don't know what I'm talking about. And thanks very much, Steve, for being with me.
Absolute pleasure. Lovely to see you and everybody else again.
And if you have any questions, talk to Steve. He answers quickly. And just have a good time until then or whenever we meet again.
Good.
Do you want to say something, Steve? Last words here.
Comments. They're really lovely to see. And yeah, Bob, lovely to see you again there as well. And Angela, lovely. Yes. So different this time, Angela says. I'll be interested to know about that, but I'll be talking with Angela before long. I'm doing a tarot therapy group, which is a monthly Zoom meeting, which is just a place for anything and everything to do with tarot therapy, really. It's on the Tuesday, the 19th of March. There's only places really left. I don't have too many people in one go. But if you're interested in that sort of thing, it's not a learning tarot thing because I've got the courses for that, but a place to share and discuss. We'll do some meditations a little like that, all kinds of things that we can do, but lots of tarot mentoring, that sort of thing within it as well. So that's coming up again. If it's the sort of thing you might be interested about, just contact me and I can send you the information on it. But thank you everybody for your time and your energy.
Yes, thank you the same. And everybody, good night. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.